You know, if you're watching this and you've got an off-grid type channel where you do lots of different things on a very small property and it's all quite intense, chances are you might have come across the problem that I've just had, and that is finding my camera. I couldn't remember whether the camera that you're watching through right now was on my little bendy octopus tripod thing that sometimes I have to wrap around tree branches or fence posts or Land Rover wing mirrors to get the shot that I'm looking for, or whether I'd just left it in the long grass somewhere, or whether it was on the big tripod that you're on now and it was in my workshop up the other end of the street. But I couldn't remember what the camera was mounted on. I didn't know where to look for it or even quite what I was looking for. So you're very lucky to be here right now listening to me waffle on about nothing in particular so far. But where am I? I'm down the end of the street in the concrete bunker. The one that I used to herd all of the neighbourhood into whenever I did anything slightly silly or dangerous up at home. So I've been very lucky to have the use of this building. It was derelict, there was nothing in it, and it was damp and cold. So I've battened the inside of it because it's made out of concrete walls about 6 inches thick. Water blasted it all out, cleaned it, lined it, insulated it, painted the floor, had a ventilator in the wall. It did have a ventilator in the wall once upon a time. It had a square hole in the wall when I arrived here. So I've put a range hood from above somebody's stove in there, and then I've got other range hoods, all from the dump, no charge. And I've turned them into my HEPA filters, which circulate the air from this room to that room that you're in. When I'm growing, I've got a roll down cover because that's a greenhouse. It's one of those cheap Chinese greenhouses that comes on a frame that's made out of sections about this long, and it takes you most of the day to put it together. You know the ones. Anyway, so you're in the fruiting room. I'm in the combined growing room and lab. It's not perfect setup having the lab in the growing room, but with a good HEPA filter, with a good flow hood. I've got a laminar flow hood over here, and that's, when I set up the camera, you can just see that to your extreme left. The only things you can't see is my automation on the wall behind here. What I've got is one fan that monitors the air going through it for moisture, pressure, temperature, and carbon dioxide content. And then it sends through 4 sensors that information back to the control panel on the wall here. And on the control panel on the wall, I can program in what I want my peripherals to do, and then it has 4 cables that go to the peripherals and controls them. The humidifier, which blows a wet fog into the fruiting room whenever it's required. The transfer fan that increases the airflow from this room into that room. So it speeds up the airflow, which will warm up the temperature, because in here is warmer than in there. So when it gets too cold in there, we pump air from here into there. Hey, it's all lots of fun. I'll do a video on how all that works if you guys are interested. This is meant to be just a general sit down and show around. Behind me is what they call a Martha tent, named after Martha Stewart, the woman who was on American TV and used to do all sorts of homemaking stuff. And one of the projects that she did a long time ago was growing mushrooms, and she grew them in one of these small greenhouses in her home. And so this became known as the Martha tent method. But I'm not growing in it. I'm just using it as another barrier to maintain sterility, because I've got a door to the outside world just here. I don't have any kind of airlock between the two, so I can keep greeblies out. The door's sealed, the whole building's sealed, but having things in here that are really, really susceptible to contamination just gives me an extra barrier against anything that may blow in when I've got the door open, or I may bring in on my clothes. Most of the time when I'm in here and I'm not blabbering, I've got a mask on. You see my mask over here in front of the flow hood. Also in front of the flow hood, there's a pressure cooker that's been going for about an hour and a half. In half an hour I'm going to turn that off, let it cool down. That's got 3 bags of growing substrate in it, which is a mixture of sawdust and chook pellets. I've been analysing the protein content of chook food, and because I can use chook food with my quail, I've decided to try it as a protein source for the mushrooms, and it's shaping up. It's the best I've had so far. I tried horse pellets from a different manufacturer. They were packed with contamination. It was really awful. Everything I did came out 100% contaminated, and the mushrooms didn't survive in every test. So I didn't want to do any mushroom videos until I'd actually got mushrooms to show you, but it's taken something like 3 months now, so you do deserve a little bit of an update. Anyway, in here, grain spawn. This has been spawned with small pieces of agar from agar dishes that you can see here. Growing out on these agar is the mycelium of 3 different types of mushroom. They're sealed, so we can't get any cross-contamination. And as they grow out, as the petri dish fills up from my sample that I place in the very centre, I can then harvest that, cut it into segments with a sterile scalpel, and drop 3 or 4 of those segments into a jar of sterile grain. I then shake it up to distribute those 4 or 5 pieces throughout the grain, and then I'll leave them, and I'll leave them upside down to denote the fact that they're in the first stage. As I see the mycelium growing through the grain, I'll wait till it's about 30% colonised, and then I'll give them a good shake, break everything up, and we'll start again from scratch. But this time, instead of starting from 4 or 5 pieces of agar, which are about a square centimetre, I'm starting from hundreds and hundreds of grains of wheat, which is about a third of the jar full. Remember, as I said, when it gets to that stage of about 30% colonisation, give it the big shake. So that 30% of grain are getting all distributed amongst all the other grain. So then it starts again for the second time, but it starts from more points, so it colonises faster. Once a jar is fully colonised, it turns into a cake. I break that cake up and crumble that cake into the fruiting substrate. And the fruiting substrate for most gourmet mushrooms like tarwaka, reiki, lion's mane, oyster is sawdust. The sawdust has got to have a little bit more protein in it, so I mix in the hydrated chook pellets. Chook pellets get soaked in water, they all fluff up. I then mix that mixture in with the sawdust and put it into bags and sterilise it. So I've just made 3 small bags, the same size as these down the bottom, and I'm sterilising those. I'll turn it off now. It's done its 2 hours, and when that cools down, probably tomorrow morning, because it's going to be dark shortly, and I won't be doing anything this evening in here, So tomorrow morning I'll come down here, that will be cool, and everything will be absolutely sterile inside these 3 bags. So I'll seal those bags. At the moment they're folded in a way that the steam won't get inside and make them more moist, but the heat will of course sterilize everything. So I'll unfold them, put them into the bar sealer, and sorry. So what I'll do is spawn that with some grain spawn and about half a jar into each bag, and then I seal the bag, leaving plenty of airspace inside the bag. And what I'll do then is give the bag a big shuffle and shake, turn it over a few times, mix that grain spawn through the substrate, and then I'll expel the excess air through the filter pad, which you can see there. That's 2 micron, and that will allow air pressure to equalize, so there'll never be a vacuum or stale air in the bag, but it won't allow bacteria to get in or get out. So we expel the air, fold the bag over, and then they spend between 1 and 2 weeks in here until the bag's fully colonized and see the very beginning of pinning. That's when we actually start to get mushrooms in the airspace on the top of the bag, and then it's into the fruiting room. And in the fruiting room where you are, when the doors close, that's a very cool, moist environment. The mushrooms think it's autumn time, shocks them into fruiting, and within a week I'll have the first of 3 flushes of mushrooms coming out of the bags. And while all that's happening, behind me here something else is happening. So come and have a look. I'll show you what else I've got running down here. In here I've got my incubator, which has been running continuously for the last month. Only draws about 40 watts, which is great because it hardly works. It's quite warm in here all the time because of the insulation. And that is currently incubating 12 eggs, because 9 that I had in there with the 12 have just hatched, and the hatchlings were all in here. They were hatched yesterday. I will bring the camera over and show you those at the moment. They're under my mother hen, which is an old pair of pajama pants folded in a certain way. They climb inside, and it's just like being underneath their mother. And in here, the eggs are in the final, what they call the lockdown phase. For the initial part of the incubation, the eggs are in a rocking mechanism that rocks them backwards and forwards 3 or 4 times a day. And that helps with the incubation and the settling of the yolk and the formation of a young chick somehow. On day 15 of the incubation, the egg turner is taken out and the eggs are laid on their sides in a cluster in the middle of the incubator, and then the atmosphere in the incubator is humidified to just above 50% humidity, and that gets them ready for hatching, and they come out in about another 10 days after that. I've got some stragglers here because I put my initial 9 eggs into the incubator, and then over the next 6 to 7 days I had a few more eggs arrive, and so I just popped them in the incubator. That'll be the rest of them that are in there now. So they are going to hatch at a rate of about 2 a day for the next 5 days, 6 days. So and then I'll put the next lot in, and I've been doing that repeatedly for the last 2 months. And so I'm bringing on groups of chicks that are about 12 to 20, between 12 and 20 in each lot, and then they're going out into the cages. I'm not selling any just yet because I want to get into egg production for the farmers markets, and lots of people are asking me about it. By Christmas I'll be selling eggs, but everything takes time, because which does come first, the chicken or the egg? Anyway, let's wake the girls up. We'll have a look. They're a bit fresh and new. They're pretty dozy still. Some of them... Oh, hello. There's one. Some of them haven't yet learned to eat. You do get about 2 days where they don't need to eat or drink or anything because they've got the sustenance that they had while they were in the egg. So here one, oh yeah, bright and alert, bright and alert. But all of them at this stage, day 2, they were born yesterday and during the night before that. Hello, 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 hello. Yeah, they're all they're all behaving like drunken idiots. They get out and they run around and they fall over, and they can't seem to get themselves up again. Sometimes they fall over in a corner and they just end up on their backs. Oh, there's it. Yep, there's one there. You see, crazy kids, and they run around like this for an hour and tire themselves out completely, and then drag themselves back into the thing here and tuck themselves up for another hour's sleep, and then come round for another one of these crazy runarounds. So it's quite entertaining. Anyway, I'll show you the eggs in here. I don't suppose there'll be anything interesting happening at this very moment, but that's the remainder of my eggs. We're sitting on 37 degrees Celsius, which is exactly where they should be. I leave those pieces of fluff in there because sometimes it could be 12 hours or so until I come down and check, and I'll make a little chick that's wandering around and it's in a stark, sterile, clean environment. It must wonder what on earth's going on. So I left those bits of fluff in there because it looks just a little bit like a young chick. Now, 49% humidity. I'm trying to keep it above 50, but that's because I've just had the lid open. I'll give it some more water in a moment. Now, all incubators lie. If you listen to the guys on YouTube who've been doing quail raising for a long time, they'll tell you that's one of the main things you have to remember, is that your incubator will lie to you. The incubator's telling me that it's sitting on 38.1 degrees. This secondary thermometer here is telling me that I'm sitting on 35.6, and the sensors are in the same place, and it's got a fan inside to distribute the air. Now I've got a total of about 7 thermometers for various reasons: cooking, brewing, my gun, my laser shooty temperature gun for working on my stoves and things like that. So I put them all in here and they all give different readings. None of them are even within a degree of each other, so you need to buy the most expensive thermometer you can get your hands on, and I believe the one I just showed you inside here is a nursery thermometer that they put into a child's bed, and it records high and low every 24 hours, and it's very accurate. So I'll just say one more hello to these little guys. I've got to tell you some hints just in case you get into raising Japanese Coturnix quail like I am. Put rocks in your water, because quails love scuba diving, but they're really shit at it. So they will drown in their own water bowl, so put some rocks in there so that they can't. The next thing is, quail will climb into their feed and kick it all out. So you put a narrow slot. Now I know that these guys can walk straight in and straight out of that slot right now, but these little things grow so quickly that within a week they'll only be able to get their heads in that slot. That's what I like to see. One's just having a drink. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Another thing you have to do with them is when they come out of the incubator and you put them here in the brooder, you have to show them what water is and what it's for. You dip their beaks into it, and you do that once or twice. and then you might come back later in the afternoon and do it again. And then another thing you can do is take out a little bit of food and just put a little pile outside. They'll discover it, they'll eat it, the others will see them eating it, and soon they'll realise that straight above them they've got that huge repository of food. I put large rocks in there because when these chicks discover the food and they start eating, they've got a voracious hunger, and they will destroy a cupful of crumble, which is what I've got in here for them. They'll destroy a cupful in a day. And then when they climb in, remember these birds are going to be quite a lot bigger in a week. When they climb in through that slot and they're inside there, they will tip the whole light milk container upside down on top of them and get trapped. So to stop that happening, I put 2 or 3 large stones in there so there's no way they can flip it over. This is great. They've got their little legs working properly now, and they're starting to climb up and over things, and they're doing stuff. I think for the last 25 to 30 hours they've been just recovering from hatching. It's obviously hard work. They've all made it this far. They all look good. Doesn't look like there's any stragglers. So I hope the rest that are coming through are going to look just as good. That's a healthy little squawk. My little baby dinosaurs. Okay, I'm going to put the lid on now so that they can stay warm. Turn off the lights and head back up to my place. Oh! Couple of things. This is a business that I used to have years ago. I used to take people on adventure rides on dirt bikes. I was world famous. I used to have people from all around the world come and enjoy a day out with me. And over here, this is my mate Jono. Jono made the front page of the local paper a long time ago. Let's have a look at the date on here. 2009. So in 2009, Jono rode his bike over the hoops of the Fairfield Bridge. Got arrested for it. Paid a big fine, lost his licence, all the stuff. But great story for your grandkids. Needed to be done. Someone had to do it.